So, today I'm going to be making a throwing knife from a train spring. The first thing I have to do is uncoil it, so I'll weld the handle onto it, and then uncoil it using the vise and anvil. Even though the steel is super hot, it's still really hard to move it because it is so thick, so you'll see me using a few different techniques to uncoil it. Now I'm moving to the anvil to flatten the spring more. Once I have the spring more or less straight, I'll begin forging the point of the knife. I haven't worked with much round stock, and it's pretty difficult to judge how much steel there is, so I'll be forging my way back from the point the whole way so that I can be sure that my proportions will be right in the end. You can see here I'm beveling the edge of the blade as I forge it, so that I'll have a better idea of the final length than if I left the beveling to the end as I usually do, since drawing the bevel can add some length to the blade, which I don't want in this instance. Now I'm using the peen of the hammer to draw out some more steel to make the blade a bit wider. Once I have most of the width, I'll go back to the flat of the hammer and hammer in some bevels. Now that the main bevels have been forged, I'm going to clean them up with my small hammer to true everything up and get everything straight and even. Now that the blade is done, I'll start working on the handle. This is going to be a full tang knife with a large ring on the end, so I'll have to be careful not to make it too long or too short because that would upset the balance of the knife and make it not very good for throwing. Now that the handle is about the thickness I want, I'll cut it off and thin it more and begin to size up where I want the hole. Now I'll begin punching the hole for the ring. Going to start with a small punch, then make the hole larger with consecutively bigger punches until it is about the right size. Then I'll accidentally drop the punch. Then later I'll make sure it's perfectly circular by drilling it out. You can see now I'm onto a bigger punch. I'll use this punch to size up the final hole. This will take a few heats to get it perfect because the hole is going to want to deform, and I'll have to true it up a few times to keep everything circular and flat. It's hard to tell because of the lighting, but the edges of the circle have bulged because of the punches, so I'm flattening it now to keep everything nice and true, and then I'll go back to the punches and punch it through again. I'm going to do one last heat on the blade to true everything up and straighten it before I leave it in the ashes to anneal. Annealing makes the steel softer so that it's easier to grind in shape, but also helps reduce the grain structure of the steel, which makes it stronger when I heat treat it. I'm being very careful to check for straightness because any unevenness or warps can be a big problem when it comes to grinding. Now that the blade is annealed, I'll begin the grinding. I'll start by truing up the shape of the blade, keeping in mind that I need the point to be perfectly in line with the hole in the back, so that everything is balanced correctly. I'm going to take my time and just go slowly so that I have everything all lined up. I'm using a 36 grit aluminum oxide belt running at 1750 RPM, which removes the material incredibly fast. Once I have the blade ground and ready for heat treat, I'll quickly true up the hole by drilling it out on my drill press. I'm using WD-40 as a drilling lubricant because even in its soft state, this high carbon steel is still fairly hard and takes a while to drill through. Now I am hardening the blade by heating it up to about 850 degrees Celsius and quenching it in oil. This makes the steel very hard, but also very fragile, so I will have to temper it after, which is heating it at a lower temperature to make it tougher. Since this is a throwing knife and will experience a lot of shock, I'll temper it more than I normally would a knife, so that it is more springy and will be able to withstand a lot of energy without bending or snapping. Now I'll polish the blade, keeping in mind that I don't want to overheat the edge of the knife, as that would ruin the temper and I'd have to reheat treat it. I'll bring the blade to 400 grit before buff. One of the last things I'll do is polish the inside of the hole with an attachment on my Dremel tool. I'm also knocking off any sharp edges so that it isn't sharp to hold. Now I'll put a slight buff on the blade. I only finished it to 400 grit, so it won't be a mirror finish, but it adds some polish to the final finish. Then I'll do a quarter wrap on the handle, and it'll be ready for some throwing. So here it is, the finished product. This was a really fun project to make. I haven't made a throwing knife before, so it was fun to figure things out and try to keep the balance right. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. I'll have more videos out soon. Thanks.